Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Rise and Grind with 72 the Architect, aka Jason B. And today we're going to talk about what nourishes your mind. That's right, a stoic view about what nourishes your mind, how to really grow and get better at what we do, and looking at all the things that may distract us as well as nourishes us. So stay tuned here in just a moment as we get started for Rise and Grind. All right, everybody. Welcome to Rise and Grind, live producing to you on Breakout and YouTube, and also my Facebook. So if you are a part of any of those platforms or groups, I'm definitely out there and available to record. So, what are we going to talk about today? What nourishes our mind? What helps us grow? What really gives us the energy that we really um, launch from? We use what is nourishment to really, I guess, go into it. And so let's look at what nourishment or nourishing means. So, nourishment, keyword, let's see, means food or other substance necessary for growth, health, and good condition, right? And I think that's very important when it comes to the mind, it comes to the body, it comes to the soul. You really got to take an evaluation of what really helps you become a better person, what lets you flow within the things that you do best, and so on and so forth, working with your life purposes. So, with a little reading on page 163 on the Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday happens to quote Seneca in his moral letters, and he says, "What nourishes noble minds." Just a simple quote. Didn't seem like it's very much. But Ryan goes on to explain. He says that that feeling you get when you haven't been to the gym in a few days and you feel a bit doughy, irritable, claustrophobic, and uncertain. Other get similar feeling when they've been on vacation for too long, right after they first retire. The mind and the body are there to be used, and they begin to turn on themselves when not to put to some productive end. It's sad to think that this is the kind of frustration in everyday reality for a lot of people. They leave so much on their potential unfulfilled because they have jobs where they don't really do much or because they have too much on the time on their hands. Worse is when they try to push these feelings away by buying things and going out, fighting, creating drama, and indulging in the empty calories of existence. Instead of finding the real nourishment, the solution is simple. Thankfully, always right at hand, get out there and work. I think it's very important. So, what nourishes your mind? And I really took some time to reflect on this beautiful Memorial Day weekend. It is what, May 29th. And I think it's very important for us to really, when we get that time off, to really find out what really feeds the soul. Are you on autopilot constantly? Are you thinking about what you have to get done as opposed to what will finish the day and give me more for the next day or even just being satisfied? I don't think that even being satisfied is something that people mention on an everyday basis. I think it's something like a distant vision, like an oasis in a dream or a place that you hope that someday will happen or take place. But what if I told you that that's all an illusion? It takes you further away from your purposes. It takes you further away from your connection to your family, takes you further away from a lot of things. So, what can we do? How do we metaphorically, or so to speak, put the work in? Many of us tell to put the shadow work in. We say, work on your mental health, work on your career set, work on your skills, your curiosity. When you're a parent, you have so much to juggle. When do you have time for yourself? Well, you've got to program it in. And me, I program it no matter what day of the week it is, rain or shine, snow or not, hot, heat, whatever. I get up early to program myself to get me fulfilled in the morning before anything else attempts to take away my energy throughout the day. I really have to look at that. So let's look at a few things. Let's look at some carefully crafted ideas and perspectives of where you can do a little better for yourself. So the first thing is where does most of your work take place? Does it take place in a job place? Does it take place at home? Where does it take place? Where's the best of you being applied? You've got to really evaluate. And maybe if you haven't evaluated that, if you haven't thought about that, what can you do and where can you do it best? Sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's in the evening. But I like to say that the best of you as you get up, even though you may say, I'm not a morning person, that is when your mind is most receptive to do really good things. So you've got to look at the body, the whole person as an ensemble. You've got body, mind, and spirit. And what are those things? Well, the physical body is what represents on you, attached to you, your eyes, your nose, your ears, your skin, everything, right? There's constantly a receptor and it's also a producer. You give off energy and you receive energy. So you got to understand, the body has a strong connection to the world, right? We do things. We feed ourselves when we need food. We take sleep when we have to, so on and so forth. But when it comes to work, what about fulfilling work with the body? Does the body need to strain itself? For the most part, yes, it does. It needs exercise. It needs a destination for the hunt, for your thriving. If you don't encourage it, what do you got? You've got a lot of empty purposes. If you don't exercise as you get older, guess what? Your mobility gets less and less. I constantly watch it when I see my mom move about. She shuffles her feet. She's really not that old, I don't think. She's only 70. She's done her time. But the body does keep the score. The body does evaluate what you hold inside it, how you process, how you eat, how you think, how you believe. And the next part, uh, the mind. Where do you work your mind best? Is it on somebody else's purpose or yours? I think that we constantly overlook that. In the mind, what do you fulfill it with? What do you fill it up? Do you read books? Do you watch programs? Do you listen to podcasts, streams? What do you feed your mind to fulfill it, to nourish it, to have it grow? Is it healthy thoughts, positive thoughts? Or are you just kind of constantly on autopilot? I think it's very important that it's the most overlooked part of our whole experience is what do you nourish your mind with? Your mind has to, you know, feed on something. It gets interested. Otherwise, idle time, as they say, is the devil's playground. Your idleness, not doing something productive or that you're interested in, allows self-doubt, fear, and lack of curiosity, lack of imagination. These are things that deeply affect the mind. The mind needs all these things. Some people may talk about the mind also needs the soul, and it does. What is the soul? It is the inner being that drives everything, your body, your mindset, your beliefs, your connection to the world of which you cannot see and that you can see. So it has deeper meanings, and it doesn't mean you necessarily have to be a part of a religion or a theology, but you can. The key word is you can. And to each their own. I don't encourage anyone to believe what I do, but I can encourage everyone to have faith in something or someone or a being. It doesn't really matter to me. I was raised in a Christian home, but my journey in my spirituality is now individualized and privatized. I can appreciate people from all walks of faith and all mindsets and philosophies, and I don't have to prove that I'm right or wrong. And it allows me to live and wander as I please. But I also understand there is a cost. So when I look at nourishment, I actually look at what nourishes your mind. Is it collaborations, seeing people smile, um, winning something? What nourishes your daily? I think that's something that we've got to look at. And What doesn't nourish you? Which moves on to the next part, the empty spaces in your life. If you really look at what's empty inside, what you feel when you say, "I don't have time for this." What you're really saying is, I'm not interested in anything." You ever see those some certain people that are just, "Oh, okay, whatever," you know? They're kinda like the Eeyore, you know, "I never have enough for me." Well, where do you start and where do you end with your day? Did you end your day on autopilot trying to watch a TV program, leaving the TV on to tell you some kind of thoughts? Did you take away from yourself is really what you did? Be honest. If you were really to measure out every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes of your conscious awake time, see how much time you really are spending the best parts that could help you learn about financial health. How do you grow money? How do you make money work for you? What about exercise? What about that shape, that belly you've been complaining about, the excess jiggle, so to speak? It's not so fun to talk about, but a lot of us believe in a lot of these things that will make us better. But then comes the best part, the work. Now, we'll do everything we can to negotiate ourselves out of hard work. No doubt about that. Do you think I like going to the gym and pushing my body to the extreme extent that it can go? I necessarily don't always do it, but there is a high when I do. I don't always feel the residual effects of my workout until after the workout's done, until I've had time to let my body rest, acclimate to the world, and do the normal things that I do. But see, we in our minds will negotiate ourselves out of the necessary work. We will negotiate every reason not to do something. I was a part of a fitness challenge, a 90-day challenge, and a holiday challenge with Barbara Majeski for a while, you know, and I did those things. And the only thing you had to do really was walk or work out for 30 minutes, drink water, and journal, right? That's all you had to do. And it is, you know, speaking just plain, how hard is it to do? But some people might take it like, well, do I have to work out harder? What is the goal? The only agreement you made in those workout challenges was just to do. Just do. Stop talking tell your friends that you're gonna do this. It's just do. And that involvement, that work every day consistently produces an outcome. And this is the part about evaluating your empty spaces. So here's my challenge to everybody. I want you to take in 3 increments for the next 7 days, evaluate and write down every 30 minutes that you put whatever you put your time into. Phone call, I don't care what it is. It may seem monotonous, but you're going to constantly look and you can make little symbols like, hey, this was towards work, this was towards family, this was just idle gossip, whatever. Be mindful. Put that time in, evaluate it for 7 days. Just do this 7 days and see where you really are at. And I'll bet more than likely you didn't even put in a quarter of the most valuable effort you could into what would really work for you. You'll put in maybe 10% on the average, I'll bet 20%, you know. And then what typically happens to many of us, this happens a lot. Many of us say, I work good under pressure. So a lot of things can fall through the cracks, fall out of your hands. A lot of things will not nourish you when you're always on the fly, on the rush. We will blame conditions like ADHD, ADD, whatever, what have you, the neurological or what do they call it? Neurodiversity. Those are the conditions you live with, but doesn't mean they are your limitations. They're just understandings of you. But if you really look at where the work is, where it really gives you this fulfills you, it's like for some of you who drink coffee, I don't drink coffee anymore. It's like that first morning sip of the coffee in the morning. You're like, that feels so good, right? But then at some point, you're chasing the energy and that feeling again, like an addict. You look at the empty spaces, you look at all, and then you're just in a rush. But what if I told you if you progressively worked through the difficulty, unwanting moments, you know, like when anyone's learning an instrument, say like playing guitar. when I had to callus my fingers up. It was a pain in the butt, man. Let me tell you. I do not like pushing harder on guitar strings and strumming and putting the practice in. But after a period of time, the pain stopped happening, and I started putting the tunes together. I started playing music. I like that ability, but it comes only at the cost of practice, putting in the work, right? So it's very important. You got to understand that. And this is not something I'm telling you that you don't already know. But see, your mind loves to play tricks on you. Your heart will play tricks on you. Your body will play tricks on you. So if you want to get in better health, so to speak, touching the three parts of you, the body, mind, and soul, if you want to touch on those things, which touch on so many different avenues and so many different pathways, when you understand those critical core things are nourished, you are not energy deprived. You are not saying, I don't have time. There becomes the false ideologies in your evaluation of where you put your best into. Have you ever said, I work better under pressure? I'm a perfectionist. I'm not that smart. I'm not perfect. These are false ideologies that you express outwardly to people for why? For allow them to accept you as you are. Maybe if you didn't say them as much, negative self-describers. Many of us do them, even me. But if we look at really what's happening, we're taking the momentum out of us. And we're taking the belief and trust that we really do need for ourselves. We can't deny that. And if you train your mind, your body, and soul every day, if you do these simple things, stop saying those things for number one. Number two, go walk every day. Put your device down, put your phone down. You don't need it. Go walk for 30 minutes. I don't care what you got to do. Or exercise. Put the rep in before you even drink any coffee. Drink some water, And when you do this, guess what? You start building a nourishment, a building of your whole person. Now, we know these, a lot of us adults, but we forget them. We overlook them. And when we're trying to rush to fulfillment, you know what happens? Anxiety, pure pressure, unnecessary beliefs, which lead to those false ideologies. So here's the next part: where to take a break versus where to push through. I think that's very, very critical that we understand, there's times in hours of the day where you just got to push through. It's difficult. You don't want to do it, but do it anyway. And then there's time like, you know what? My mind needs a breather. And it doesn't necessarily mean putting my face into a phone and going seeing what happens on platforms. It means I need to take a walk. Why? To rejuvenate my creative problem solving and discerning skills. Yes, you build these things. They become talents. They become representation of who you are and what you do, what you're capable of doing. So when we look at these things and we look at, evaluate 7 days, then try 14 days, then 21 days, you'll look at where you put work in, your exploration, your play, your family time, your creative, and your learning. How much important is it for you to learn every day? I think that's something that we overlook as we get older. After 40, I had to push more harder to constantly be learning because I know that doing that work adds nourishment to my mind. It really makes it work in such a fine-tuned machine, which also adds to emotional security, emotional intelligence. Because me and let my mouth fly, I can destroy most things all around me, and I've done it too well. But see, I'm on a different pathway. At 50 years old, I'm trying to shape my emotional intelligence and my IQ, my intelligence, logical. So that's pretty much really what I wanted to talk about. Think about today as a day. If it's your third day off, it's a day of reflection. It's a day, maybe take a little bit time, maybe put in a smaller program. Give yourself some structure for the next 4 days of the week that you're going to have to work, or 7 days. Put in a little bit of, hey, I'm going to put 10 minutes into reading. I'm going to put 20 minutes in some light exercise. And I'm really going to think about the nutrition that's going into my body. I'm going to hydrate. Give myself a break a fulfilling break, and then do something strenuous. See where your boundaries are. Maybe, just maybe, things might drastically change for you. Now, I'm going to bring a few people up if they're interested in talking about what I've talked about. A few friends of mine on Breakout. So, hey, Julie Locum's in the building and Caroline Boyd. And I see April. Hey, April, how y'all doing? Let's see if anyone wants to come up and kind of talk about what I've just discussed. Let's see. Here we go. Good morning to you, ladies. How y'all doing? Welcome on in. If you guys are in a spot to talk. Okay, maybe they might be able not be able to talk. So if you can type in the chat, is there anything that I touched on that maybe encourages you to do something better for today and tomorrow? That would be a question. So you also have that availability. Anyone? Okay, I guess that no one can talk, but you know what? That's okay. So if you want to check me out live on YouTube or the Breakout app, feel free to download the app Breakout, and that's Breakout Audio. Can you hear us? I do not hear anything. Hold on. Let me see what happens. 1 second. Let me readjust my Bluetooth. There you are. Okay, now I can hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning. And how are you?
Doing really good. When I got up, that you had your podcast on to join.
Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts about today?
Well, I thought it was very interesting. And, if we do look at, like with your challenge, if we look back and see what are we actually doing that is nourishing our minds. And for me, I love reading my Bible every morning when I first get up. That nourishes my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as my inner being that you mentioned, I enjoy just sitting on my deck and enjoying nature. I'm in a rural area. I love, it's peaceful. You can hear the cows mooing in a distant field. And, things like, reading my Bible, it helps me to be a better person. And, so that's what nourishment is for me.
That's awesome. And Julie, are you able to talk now?
Yes, sir. I sure am. No, I think it's great. I have a morning routine that anchors me. I get outside, I spend time with my dogs, I exercise, try to listen to something positive. So I totally align with your mission today.
Yeah. Well, it's really about taking the right actions and not just precautions, is really the premise of why I do today. And when I think about the right actions, it's like, well, what am I giving myself to have that nourishment, that fulfilling, so I have the strength, the power, the ability. And when I look at all these things, no matter what you do, if it gives you, the go, because I see a lot of people they're just not motivated. They're tired, they're exhausted, and they express it constantly. And when you're on that wavelength, it really says a lot about somebody, so, oh, and I see our good friend Dragon in. Hey, Dragon, good to see you, man. So we're talking about what nourishes your mind. And
what's up, dudes?
Good to see you, man. So
yeah, I'm actually getting ready to open up a room in 7 minutes, and I just finished my call, so I figured I'd swing on by and say hi to my bud.
Oh, that's awesome, man, because I'm going to be finishing in about 6 minutes because I do 30 minutes on here and then on my own show, and then my time is free on this beautiful Memorial Day. So, Dragon, had a quick question. What nourishes your mind? What do you do for yourself that nourishes your mind?
Oh, God. If Julie is here, she's like, oh, shit, don't ask him that question. I mean, obviously, hey, sweetie. So I would say that the biggest thing that I look to control is what I consume.
Mm.
Because what I always teach people is that whatever it is that you end up assuming is from what you're consuming. So therefore, to answer your question, I control my reality, which is why I nourish, right? It's like I'm a control freak. So when I wake up in the morning, I nourish myself first with gratitude. The second thing that I nourish myself with is, you know, taking the opportunity to realize that my unhealthy program, is probably trying to boot up, all of the things that I've learned from my mother, father, teacher, preacher. So I put a pause on that. That's another way that I nourish myself is I pause my program from booting up. And then I create foolish optimism with reading books and reading my book. Talking to people like you guys, I
That's
would
awesome.
say being here right now would be a way of nourishing myself. So that's it. It's just about controlling what it is that I allow in. Is the safety measure, but I nourish myself by deciding what I'm going to let in. So reading the right books and
So
all that. I don't watch TV.
would you say as a mode that would be discipline?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, discipline's an interesting thing. Discipline is not something that you said discipline is something that you acquire over time.
You build, right?
Right. So I'm a disciplined person because I've been doing those things I just talked about for a long time. So if you say, hey, that guy's very disciplined, that's something that, like success, comes over time. But yeah, I would say that I am disciplined, but what people that are not disciplined don't understand how long it takes to become disciplined.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I actually was revisiting your buddy Jim Quick's book, Limitless, and he kind of talks about, the point of discipline, and he also talks about a lot of different things. And then I've also listened to James Clear from Atomic Habits, and they talk about the consistency of anything produces an outcome of whatever it will be, and discipline can give you a lot of freedom. I think that's really what many of us want. We want to do what we want to do when we can do it, but we don't want to be hindered or labored or leveraged by outside influences. We understand that there has to be a contribution. And that's why I tell people no one is self-made. You have self-interest, but you are community built like a tribe. And it's very important to understand that your own presence, your mind and your body, whatever comes out of your mouth is yours, right? You've got to build that thing. You've got to put it to work in the right places that what you deem as fit. And that's the biggest thing about nourishment. Are you really putting that into play? And welcome, Ginger Snaps, to the stage. I definitely appreciate you coming on in. A quick question to you is what nourishes your mind? Same question I've asked everybody. If you're available to answer.
What nourishes my mind?
Yes.
Is well, my number one thing is I'm an air sign, so I tend to spend time outdoors and with nature. And I absolutely just come alive. My spirit and soul and mind is just so connected to nature. And yesterday we went to my hometown and visited my parents' cemetery. And on the way, we have a battlefield, a state park. And I was so excited to introduce my son to that park and walk down the trail. Daniel Boone had been. I mean, I'm just so alive after a getaway, and just soaking up some sun. That's my favorite thing. And journaling, absolute journaling. I'm a writer. Haven't published my books yet. Working on it, but writing. Get all my thoughts and emotions out, and just essentially being able to disconnect from technology. I've really carved that down. I started a new Clubhouse account with just under 100 followers, just being very mindful of my new tribe. And gosh, that's I'm a visual. I like to working on a vision board. So just being in connection with body, soul, and mind all together, just learning to appreciate that. That's essentially it so far, if I'm on track here.
You are. And
Ginger, you got to speak to Julie. She'll help you with your book.
oh yeah, Julie's in publishing.
Thanks, Dragon.
Okay. No, literally, Julie, you've been yes, absolutely. So for the first book, I thought I wasn't going to self-publish, but I'm just kind of redirected, and the first book I'm getting out is going to be like an ebook or a little self-published book, just to be my calling card for the speaking engagement. So that's coming up, and I'll definitely connect with you about that.
And I think that's awesome. And one thing I tell people, like I was in a goal room on Clubhouse earlier, and they were talking about their goals. And one thing I said, what is it about your goals will fulfill today? Because if you're not promised tomorrow and you can't rewrite yesterday, what about your goals is going to give you another morsel, a nourishment for the next revolution, the next movement in things? So whether it be a book, a podcast, a vidcast, whatever it is there going to be something out of today that's going to fulfill the activity of for tomorrow, when it takes place? Because at the end of today, I like to evaluate and journal and look at the things that make a difference in my life. So that's something that we all need to internally, ask ourselves. And ask yourselves on a daily, like, hey, did this really give me an outcome that I really feel fulfilled? And if it didn't, can you settle with it, let it go? And when you restart tomorrow, or you start tomorrow, will it, that be in your mindfulness of your time, what you fill your time with? So that's a big thing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I definitely appreciate you coming out. And that's all the time that I have for Rise and Grind. Thank you so much. Look forward to your shows and your rooms if you are on the Breakout. And for those listeners on YouTube, check out the Breakout social audio app. It's in your app stores. You can find that. You can probably find me under 72 the Architect. That is my handle, or Jason B. And feel free to add, make rooms, collaborate, do all that great stuff. We'll see you all out there. You all have a great day. Take care.